Hello, beautiful soul. Welcome back. Video number 4. Now we get to talk about more fun stuff. I was going to say that fun stuff, but it's all been fun stuff, let's be honest. Pricing. How do you price this product so that it's in alignment with the time and energy and passion you're putting into it? It's in alignment with your higher self, and it's in alignment with what you actually feel embodied to say the investment is. Because if you're shaky when you say the investment is, your client's going to go, because your client, one of the things that your client is actually leaning on you for is your certainty. So if you even waver a little bit here and they feel your uncertainty, that's going to amplify their uncertainty. So it's so important that we get this right, we feel embodied with it, and we say the investment is no different to we say it's 28 degrees outside today.
Totally.
Yeah.
Yes.
So let's talk about it.
Yeah.
What makes up a price?
Yeah, awesome. So the way that I take my clients through this is always, it's kind of like a 2-pronged effect. And the first pronged is the real kind of earthly level of it, which is, considering the features and benefits, considering how long a session is, what you would normally charge for a session, looking at each of the individual features and kind of breaking down, and basically doing kind of maths to add up all of the different features and look at what the total cost is. And then the second element, which is what Kelly just kind of referred to there, is a little bit more of the kind of embodied kind of higher self experience of it, which is a little bit more etherical, where you get to kind of tune into, in my example with my clients, it's tuning into the co-creation with that product as a living kind of entity and what it wants you to kind of up level to embody as well. And so there's kind of 2 parts. One of it is really earthly and the other one's sort of a little bit more etheric. And so as part of the earthly, it's about looking at the features and benefits.
Yes. And we're going to give you a couple of little examples of how to, actualize what the features are worth, because what I have seen and what you don't want to do is, one-on-one coaching session, that's $1,000 of my time. And when you don't charge more than $200 a session for a one-on-one session. So we want to, when we're doing this, we want to be really accurate when we're packaging it together so that the features, when they're added up, when we get to the program, the offered price, it's actually more of a value bargain for the client, as opposed to we've just gone and bumped up the features because we want to beef up our prices.
Totally. And this is where you get to also consider, are there some bonuses I can offer in here that don't necessarily cost me time and energy, but do add massive value? And, this is kind of part of this process, also weaved into the previous video with your offering creation as well. But when the pricing part comes up, you can quite often come up against something where you're like, there's something else here that would add some more value, but may not cost me time and energy, but is still the client would definitely pay for that as a value thing. And so this is the kind of, let's use the Liberated launch, for example, when I look at a half-day deep dive with me, what does that cost? That's 4 solid hours. I'll buy them lunch if they come, and they'll have I'll do the process with them in my home. And what does that cost? And so personally, I would look at how much I would cost for a single session, how much I would charge for a single session. And, for a 1 hour, and then kind of multiply that. Yeah. I would also take into consideration the fact that I'm going to have to clean my home.
Yeah.
I'm going to
things you need to consider.
Exactly. I'm going to want to feed them, and that might actually mean taking them out for lunch. That would be my preference, so long as we're not in lockdowns and the restaurants aren't all closed.
Right.
Exactly. And so, that's kind of something that I would look at, breaking down all of those elements, as opposed to, like Kelly said, where you just pick a number out of a hat and you just kind of hope for the best.
About that.
Exactly. And then again, with the 4 follow-up individual sessions, again, looking at what they cost individually and then kind of adding them up. Private message access is a little bit more challenging to price than a 1-hour session. But the way that I would tune into that is I have to be, depending on the boundaries that I've created around that private message access, and that will kind of change where you land on the pricing scale. But if I want to be available somewhat 24/7 where I'm going to respond to them within 24 hours. I'm going to be like kind of messaging them back and forward, sometimes for maybe half an hour, which is ultimately half of a session. And then sometimes it's going to be a lot less than that. So I want to kind of find some sort of an average, some kind of a balance where it feels really good for me to be kind of at their beck and call, really.
To be that available, really.
Exactly. And some products won't offer that level of like of intimacy. Exactly.
Yeah, intimacy. That's a great word for it.
And this one does. And so I really had to kind of consider that. And that was a little bit of a, grounded kind of how much time and energy, and a little bit of a kind of tune in to the totality of the 12 weeks and being kind of at their beck and call to a degree.
Yeah.
And then, the extra kind of elements, the session with Anita that I mentioned, that actually costs a certain amount of money. So I'm going to have to include that because I'll obviously be paying for that for my client. And then the different kind of levels of support that I offer don't really cost me anything extra, but it is good to consider the value add that they get.
And even things like being able to have access to your tech skills, like what that would actually cost, like for you to be able to do those things for them when it's a not tech person, like the value on having somebody say, that's okay, you just do what you love doing. You do the art part, you do the content part, and I will take care of your tech.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
And to be honest, like these, where my clients are at, they would quite often, they can do part of it, but the more kind of difficult parts of it, they would have to outsource. And so if I can give them quick fixes to support that implementation of that, not only is that going to have them execute their process quicker because they don't need to outsource it necessarily, but it's also a significant value add that nobody else in the industry is offering, to my knowledge.
Yeah, exactly. And also, like, you have to put a price on that. Like, what is it worth to have, like, not just 24-hour access to you, but 24-hour IT help desk?
Exactly.
That's pretty sexy.
Totally,
so, but when you're doing your product and thinking about your product, we really want you to think about these little bits and pieces too, that some things that you're doing that just other people aren't in your space, and what is the value on that's aligned for the time and energy. And sometimes consider like how much time and money you've already how much time and money you've already spent to get those skills to be able to deliver that.
Totally.
So these are all the different factors that come into what is the individual value of each feature before we add it all up.
Totally.
Yep.
Yeah. And I would love to add there that, like, let's say this process took you 6 years, and the combination of the different things that it took you to add in, like you had a session with this healer and this coach and this whatever, like really looking at the expanded example of that process and kind of, again, just taking that into consideration. It doesn't necessarily determine the price, but it is something to kind of help you land and embody in the price that's actually right for the offering.
Yeah, exactly. Now, the other thing that we would like you to consider when you're doing this is what it's worth to the client. So what we're going to do is we're going to put up on the screen some of the promises and benefits that Carissa uses for Liberated Launch. You'll also have to create a similar thing for your product, because this is how you communicate to your client what's in it for them. Because when a client's working with you, they don't care about your cool thing or how much time it's taken you to learn or any of that kind of stuff. All they care about is what's in it for them.
Totally.
So we're going to share with you some examples of promises and benefits, because this tangibly tells the client what they're going to get from working with you and your product. And then you've got to ask yourself the question as part of the pricing, what is the value of that? What is that worth to the client? Because that's part of what makes up the pricing component of your package. And when you're tuning into the higher self aspect of it, this part is what you're tuning into, to what is the breakthrough actually worth to the client.
Totally.
Does this make sense? Yeah.
And the biggest thing is people don't buy features. They buy benefits. They buy what's in it
for them.
Yeah, and what the combination of the features is going to give them. Like, I don't know about you, but when I look at an offering or I look at whether I'm going to invest in something, I couldn't give two shits about whether it was including 5 sessions or 2. What's it going to give me? Like, if one person
is it going to solve my problem?
Exactly. And so, the features are important for us to create, but it's less kind of detail for them when they're considering a purchasing option or whether they're going to invest in you. And so some of the benefits I have for Liberated Launch.
Let's give it to them. Let's stick it up on the on the doobie.
Yes. Okay, so when it comes to benefits, we can go in super, super detail and kind of sexify them to the max, or we can keep them really simple. And I wanted to give you a combination of these that I have created off of Liberated Launch. And, you know, some of these may be somewhat out of context based on how much information we've given you in these past previous videos, because we've really kind of talked about Liberated Launch from a features perspective. Yeah. And so, you know, when I start sharing my content out into the world and when I start marketing it, then these benefits are going to be really, really important, which is why they're going to be in somewhat detail. So starting off with a super basic one, these should hopefully be shown on your screen right now so you can read them, pause it, reflect on it, look back and maybe use them to help you create your own. And we'll also have them printed in a PDF as well for you to look at at your leisure.
Yeah, and we might even find some other ones that we've helped clients with in the past, just to kind of like get the creative juices flowing.
Totally. So we've got become a magnet for the souls who are here to journey with you and your offering. Become aligned and anchored in the highest timeline available to you and the circulation of your offering to create lasting impact with your clients. Become the frequency match point for all that you and your offering desire to create and manifest, including the soulmate clients, the lasting change, and legacy. Activate and integrate your inner union template so you can flow easily between the masculine and feminine aspects of the creation, birthing, and execution of your offering and delivering it out into the world successfully.
That's a sexy one.
Thanks, babe.
You're welcome.
Co-create with your offering and truly bring it to life so it can show you what's available to be attuned in your own field and anchor you into the highest expression and outcomes available.
Can see what's in it for them.
Learn what it really means to share an offering with the world from a fifth dimensional consciousness where you're co-creating and sharing from a place of creation and expression rather than only focusing on 3D results. Liberate yourself from the boxes, restrictions, and shackles of what it means to birth your offering out into the world and find your very own unique way that highlights and amplifies your skills and magic to call in those who are here to co-create with you and your offering.
You could just mic drop and walk off stage now.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah.
Complete.
So I hope you can see from that, like the power when you start talking about the benefits and what's in it for your client, how powerful it is. It takes something that's not tangible and it really anchors it deeply into tangibility and physicality that your client can go, oh, that's it. And when you're talking to your client, you don't necessarily talk to them about, oh, are you frustrated with this? Are you stuck here? You always talk to them from the place of the features and benefits and the results that they're going to get, the desires and the wants, because this is what makes it sexy and this is what makes your content magnetic and draws them into you. And this is where the power of this really happens, because when you can articulate and really get what's in it for them, magic happens. And when you're coming back into your pricing, when you're really anchored here, it makes it so much easier. Like when you feel in and do the higher self alignment about like what is the value of this product, it allows you to connect with that on a much deeper level.
Totally. Yep. And I'd love to use an example. So I had a client recently where we were basically going through this process. We kind of looked at the features and benefits, and it was quite a big, very, very full container, and it was a 12-month kind of 4-term, beautiful, amazing offering. And when we looked at just the features and the benefits, it was about a $20,000 price point. That's breaking down, you know, the events that she was running, the group trainings, the Facebook group, all that kind of stuff. And then when we were kind of tuning into it and we started to look at the higher self perspective and her energy capacity, because, you know, she's a really amazing energy worker and she kind of is holding a really big space for these people. And so when she started to tune into, and we did a process together where we really kind of tuned into what the higher self price was, she actually came up with $28,000. And so we had to kind of really look and find, okay, cool. So what's in alignment? What's not in alignment? Where do we need to go with this? And when we started to really tune in and look at what was embodied and what felt comfortable coming out of her mouth, this kind of process happened over a little bit of a period of time, but she ultimately came to the point where she started selling it at the 28K. And every time it would come out of her mouth on a sales process, she would realize that it wasn't very embodied. And so then the next phase of that was to recognize what was embodied. What felt really easy to come out of her mouth was actually 14K. So she had two options. She could have either stripped back the container, stripped back what was included and kind of make it a 14K offering, or she could sell it in half. She could sell the first half and really explain that, you know, the people are coming in for half of the process and that they could choose to continue or not continue. And that's what she did. And so as soon as she switched that and started selling a 6-month container with 2 terms and literally cut it in half, that's when all of the people started saying yes. And she filled in and completely filled out her program like that as soon as she recognized that embodiment process. So this process of recognizing the features, really getting clear on the higher self, and then finding where it lands in the body. Just like Kelly said, it has to be really centered. When it comes out of your mouth, it needs to be solid, certainty. And without that, it doesn't matter how amazing your sales skills are, it doesn't matter how amazing your product is. If it's not embodied, it's really challenging to get somebody else over the line.
So I like to say your clients can smell bullshit.
Exactly. Yeah, and that pretty much
say it really bluntly.
Yeah, and so we're going to have like these examples that we've used today in a PDF.
Yes, they'll be in a PDF, and just want to like really iterate here that like even if your embodied amount is less than the features and benefits, and also what your higher self is telling you, it's not about like taking things away from the client or from the process, because that's actually not serving them. That's not giving them what they need. And remember, creating this whole signature program was about creating a journey for your clients to give them what they need. So I love this example so much, Carissa, because it actually shows like rather than taking away from you, taking away from the client, like finding a way that you can work with what is embodied.
Exactly.
And finding a way to make that work. So it's a win-win-win all round.
Totally. Yep.
So here's the little exercise for this one is for you to complete this process. There will be a worksheet for it as well. You want to fill in and ask what is the features and benefits, like tangible, earthly, 3D, what is that worth? Then fill in what is the higher self embodiment based upon the results you know you're getting for the client and the time and energy that you're putting in. And then check in and ask yourself your internal guidance, like what do I actually feel comfortable saying the value of this offering is?
And practice saying it out loud. You'll know in your voice when you say it. Like pretend you're on a sales call, say it's $5,000. And if it comes out with ease, or if it comes out a little bit wobbly, and use that to assist you as well.
And you know you're wobbly if you're getting all kinds of like heat sensations in your body, if you're a bit nervous, if you're getting the underarm sweats, the top lip sweats, the under boob sweats, you know you're probably not quite embodied yet. And a really awesome way to do this is look in the mirror and say it over and over and over again, looking yourself in the eyes until you believe you.
Totally.
Yep.
Love it.
Awesome. So we're going to let you do that fun little exercise, and we're going to see you on the final video, which is the marketing and offering and getting this out and having your people see it.
See you then.